The concept of discourse community. From your prior experience and probably your writing classes before, you've learned that writing is not one size fits all. What works in that Facebook page probably doesn't work quite so well in your academic paper. While this might seem intuitive, writing and rhetoric theorists use the concept of discourse community to explain how writing conventions develop, why groups who write to each other tend to settle on common ways of doing things over and over again. Linguist and discourse theorist John Swales outlines some of the common features of discourse communities. For example, Swales says that discourse communities have common interests and public goals. They share mechanisms of communication. They share information and feedback with one another. They share genres and genre conventions. They share specialized and shared terminology. And they have members with expertise. So if you're in ENC 1102 right now, you might be wondering, what does this mean for research? What does it mean for me? The answer is that potentially it means a lot, because discourse communities do share things like public goals. They often research in the same way, and they share their findings through similar genres and similar locations. That's those mechanisms of communication, like journals. Good research writing is driven by and responds to the history of what's been written before about that subject within the discourse communities that study it. And so that's one reason that research writing is often compared to or referred to as entering a conversation. There are many voices in the room before you got there, and knowing your discourse community helps you understand them. To get a bit more specific, I'll mention 3 things that discourse communities shape. First, they shape your primary sources. Those artifacts are things you analyze when you're doing research. Those can be humans, they can be data that come from machines, they can be texts. They also affect the secondary sources, the text that you might read to learn more about other people who are analyzing similar kinds of primary sources. So depending on what discourse community you're in, you might look in completely different databases and journals in order to find relevant research that gets at the primary research that you're wanting to do. So while discourse communities help shape the kinds of materials that you might bring to research, they also shape the very questions that you can ask, or what might be seen as the sort of big picture end for your research. The things that drive why anyone would do research in the first place really emerge from the conversations of discourse communities. And so for that reason, discourse communities tend to develop their own ways of asking questions, or they sort of determine what appropriate kinds of questions can even be asked in research. Now that might have made it seem like you have no individual choice in research. Now that's not true. But discourse communities are always there, and if you want to conduct research and you want to share those findings, understanding how discourse communities potentially share goals, conventions of genre, terminology, and ways of conducting research and asking questions can help you make your research more effective and can help you enter research conversations with the findings that you gather. Thanks for listening. This has been a clip from ENC 1102, and this is Dr. Stacy Pigg.